Right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our COVID-19 student vaccination town hall discussion. My name is Barry Brinkley, and I'm the Chief of Staff at DC Prep. And tonight we have our awesome partner, pediatrician Dr. Yolanda, with us to give us her medical take on the COVID-19 vaccine for young people. Just a quick introduction of Dr. Yolanda. I could say so many things because she does so many great things, but I try to condense it down a little bit, Dr. Yolanda. But she is a double board certified physician in both pediatrics and obesity medicine. She's the owner and CEO of Family Fitness and Wellness for Community Health and founder and president of Dr. Yolanda Cares Foundation, which is her nonprofit organization that focuses on reducing health disparities in historically excluded communities. Dr. Yolanda is a member of the Black Coalition Against COVID. As an advocate for the pediatric community, she also lives and practices in Ward 8 DC. We are super excited to have you, Dr. Yolanda. You have supported us already in our vaccination efforts across DC Prep. You attended our last vaccination clinic in December. It was super helpful, talking to parents, even holding some of our preppies as they were getting their shots, and comforting them, and just make sure that everyone had the right information, advocating for our parents, even on site that day. And so we just excited to work with you and continue to work with you. And so excited for our conversation tonight. Anything you want to say to welcome our folks to the conversation?
No, but just thank you for having me. Thank you guys for being diligent as parents, understanding that this whole ordeal keeps changing on us. We all know that the mask mandate, what was it? I think it ended today for the District of Columbia in some places. So some schools are handling that. Some parents are juggling just so many changes. And so you guys have been just stellar at sort of listening to the science, listening to CDC, and just holding us accountable, but also being accountability partners, and sort of just doing what's right for ourselves and for our children and for your children. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, because it really does help when the parents are really interested in getting the information, utilizing the information, and helping us keep your schools and your homes safe.
So thank you for that, Dr. Yolanda. I appreciate that. So we are excited to spend a little time tonight to provide you all with some information and answer your questions about the COVID-19 vaccination for young people. As you may know, we are hosting a COVID-19 vaccination clinic for young people ages 5 through 11 this Wednesday, March 2nd, so 2 days from now, at our Anacostia Elementary campus, which is 1409 V Street Southeast, V as in Victor, from 3:30 to 7. This will take place in the gym. Please come out and have your child vaccinated if they're from the ages 5 through 11. And yeah, we just excited. You'll hear this commercial again later tonight. You will need to bring your insurance card if you are coming to get vaccinated. If you do not have insurance, that is totally fine. Please still come. You can work with our vaccine partners, and they'll make sure that you still are able to get the shot for free. And I will put a link in the chat for you to RSVP for a spot if you would like to RSVP for a particular time slot, or you can just walk up and walk in on Wednesday. It's totally fine. But excited about that as well. And again, you'll hear that commercial again later tonight, and I have that link in the chat for you. In addition to Dr. Yolanda tonight, you're going to be hearing from two of our DC Prep binning parents later at certain points this evening. So a few weeks ago, Dr. Yolanda and I had held a virtual call with two mothers who participated in our COVID vaccine clinic at our Benning campus back in November and December. And you'll hear about their experiences in a few video clips that we'll try to include tonight throughout the discussion, so that you'll hear from different voices outside of myself and Dr. Yolanda. Dr. Yolanda, you ready to jump in?
I am. I feel like it's a tag team here.
So it is. We got it. You know, we're good. We're a good duo. We're a good duo.
Ready.
All right. So my first question is, I mentioned in your bio that you're part of the Black Coalition Against COVID. We'd love just to hear you tell us about how you got involved in that, why you got involved in that, and just like your connection and passion for the work of letting folks know about COVID.
Yeah, so we at the Black Coalition Against COVID sort of started as a group of attendings who are mostly from Howard University Hospital, or at least Howard University trained. And we recognized early on that COVID was affecting the Black population particularly harder than most. And so we started thinking about what it was that not just happening in our communities and in our homes, but what was lacking, what information was lacking, why people might be a little hesitant. Many of us recognize that parents and that children, teachers, just regular everyday folks wanted to hear from someone that looked like them, who cared for them in their communities. And most of us were community physicians. So it started off as mostly adult docs, and then they tapped a few of us that are pediatricians, especially as the cases started to rise in the pediatric population, so that we got involved and just learning and just helping shape the narrative about what COVID is, what it looks like in our community. We actually also developed an app that will be actually pushed out really soon, that allows people to sort of ask those questions. What is it? What is COVID? What are the signs and symptoms of COVID? What are the sequelae, meaning what are the after effects of COVID? What are the effects of certain vaccines? What are the differences between the vaccines? What are the components that I'm hearing about? A lot of disinformation and misinformation has really been harming us as a community in terms of keeping folks who really should have been vaccinated early on. Some people who really succumb to the virus and the infection that may not have had they had early immunization status. So we just wanted to get together, we banded together, and there are doctors, there's some nurses, psychologists. There's several of us that are a part of and students alike. We have some Howard University college students, because we wanted the perspective of everyone. What are the things that your constituents are worried about? What are they concerned about? Your colleagues, rather. Why are they hesitant? What would make this an easy, app? What would make it more user friendly? What are the things, so we really did think about this whole spectrum of our community, the parent spectrum, the teachers, the grocery store workers, whoever, right? What are some of the information that you might want and need? And then we try to step up and sort of answer those questions and meet that task. And now, even going forward, it's not just about COVID, it's about the new normal. What are the things as the mask mandates change? What parts of the country can you go to? For instance, New York City, you still have to be fully vaccinated to go into restaurant venues and the theaters and the movies. So what parts of the country do you need to know about what things are, so we're just trying to basically keep everyone up to date on information as it rolls in.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to start our video clips out because I'm excited for folks to hear from some of our families who have gone through the vaccination clinics for DC Prep already and have got their child or children in some cases vaccinated through our vaccination clinics. When we spoke to them a couple weeks ago, you asked them a great question around their experiences having school-age children in a pandemic, right? And we know all our families can relate to that because we're all sort of learning as we go. Like you said, it's a new normal, an old normal. It switches every single day, it almost feels like. But I want to start us off with just like looking at a quick clip of our parents' experiences in having children in a pandemic. So 1 second, so I share my screen so we can view that together. Can you all see? No.
I think so.
What has it been like to have your child in school during a pandemic? What has that felt like as a parent?
I have to be completely honest. It's scary. It's not a day that go by that I don't pray for my baby. I have a preschooler and a first grader. So, preschool babies, it's hard to tell them to keep their mask on. They don't understand. They're young. So it's scary. Every day I'm praying, and all I can do is hope that God just keep them them, safe, and that's all I can do. But I try to teach my kids that we can't always live in fear, so we got to do what we got to do at the end of the day, so that's how I'm taking it, but also making sure my kids are safe. Sometimes we have to go through what we don't want to go through.
Oh, it's I would say it's very challenging. And because I have three there, but I also have kids in high school and things like that. So it's challenging because like even though I know my babies are vaccinated, there's a lot of kids that's not vaccinated. And even though my kids are coming there, like my son, he's fully vaccinated, but he came there and ended up getting positive. But due to the fact that he had the vaccination, he didn't have any symptoms. We didn't even know he had it until he had to take the rapid. So that does scare me because it's like whenever one of them's sick or if one of them got a quarantine, I quarantine my whole house. So if one of my kids' class is quarantined, I leave my other kids home because they all is in the same house and I don't want them to pass it to anybody else. So it is scary, but I'm trying to get over this fear.
So those were, again, words directly from my parents in our community who have participated in our vaccination clinics. Dr. Yolanda, have you heard similar thoughts from other parents or guardians in the community?
Oh, absolutely. I think that first of all, those parents were so brave, so kind to give us their time and really be very candid about their own feelings about vaccinating. And when we spoke with them, it was pretty early on in the vaccination process for the 5 to 11-year-olds. So they were pretty bold and pretty brave to sort of jump right in, get their kids vaccinated, and then agree to talk about it and share with us. So we were very thankful for them. But yeah, so in my community, I just came from clinic today and I, rushed in so I could be here to share with you all today. But in my community, when I'm doing parents, so now most of the shots that I'm doing are boosters or second, vaccines is where we are now. And, parents are still slightly concerned, but what I recognize, what I really appreciate is that most parents see themselves as leaders in their home, as needing to sort of lead by example, knowing that as difficult a decision as it was, but they really want to keep their family safe. And, most of us are responsible for all of the safety decisions in our homes, right? Making sure we have smoke detectors and making sure we have alarms and making sure, gas is working and water, all the stuff that keeps our homes running and safe. And so vaccines are just really a part of that process of maintaining our homes, maintaining a high standard of safety in our homes, really trying to protect our children, just like we wouldn't let them, outside to play in the middle of the street. We don't want them out in COVID without protection, right? It's the same thing. I put my kids in the car and put a seatbelt on them for a reason, because although my plan isn't to go out and get into a car accident, if by chance it happens, we have all the safety measures in place in case something does take place. And so that's basically how I talk about it with my parents and how my parents sort of respond to it. And so, the part where the mom said that when one gets it, she sort of quarantines everybody, because sometimes it's difficult to figure out what CDC would say about it. Sometimes people will have come up with their own sort of regimens about what to do at home. But I appreciated that she said that, because what she's thinking is, if somebody's infected in my home, I don't want to get anybody else sick. So I keep everybody home, have them all quarantined, and then sort of have them go back when everybody's clear. Because when you do have those close contacts like that, it is much more likely to be infected. The great news, however, is once you're vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and then boosted, the likelihood, the incidence of being infected by someone just because they're positive actually is pretty low. And the other great news is now the Biden administration has sent out these home tests So now you actually can see right at home before you even send your child to school, whether or not they're testing negative. So all of these things are in place so that we can finally get to a space where we can take the masks off in the schools, relax, and let our kids get back to sort of the daily routine of just learning and just being kids and just being, free to explore their environment without the fear of the pandemic sort of looming over us all.
Mhm. You spoke earlier about parents and their concerns, and we at TC Prep, we actually back in November called all of our parents and just to see where their thoughts were about vaccinations as we were preparing for our first vaccination clinic at the end of November. And it was mixed reviews, right? We got a lot of different responses and some concerns about the vaccine, in particular around students being young and so young, and what does this mean? And adults were still making their own decisions around the vaccine, and so it's a lot going on there. We asked our parents, Miss Glidden and Ms. Vines, about their thoughts and what reservations they had, and so I'm just going to share that video clip with the group now, so that we can listen and then come back and sort of discuss. Ms. Vines, I'll keep it with you, and then we'll come back to Ms. Glidden. But did you have any reservations first about getting your children vaccinated?
No, I didn't have it because me myself, I had my vaccination back in the beginning of the year, and I saw how I was. The only thing that I was pretty nervous about is like the side effects and how they will feel after getting the shots. But once they had it, I felt comfortable with giving them the second one.
Did it have any side effects?
No, nothing. They was running around doing everything. They was acting normal. They had no side effects from it.
Gotcha. Ms. Glidden, I'll go to you now. Any reservations that you had?
No, I have to agree with the other parent. I got my shot and I had a headache and everything, and I was just out cold outside with my son. When he got his shot, I was thinking he won't feel the same way. Like, he was running around too, doing the same thing. And I was asking him, I said, "Are you okay? You have a headache? Your arm hurt?" He's like, "No." And I'm sitting here thinking, like, how come you're not going through what I'm going through? So it made me feel like more like, if I'm trying to find a word, it made me feel better, like, or not as worried, because at first that's what I was worried about, the side effects. That he's going to have to take him out of school. He's going to be, not feeling well. So yeah, I have to agree with the other friend as well. So but he was fine.
So again, these parents didn't have any major concerns around the vaccination, but we do know that there are families out there that are very concerned, right, about what does it mean, what's going to happen. And so I guess, my question, like, what do you say to those parents who just like super reluctant about the vaccination?
So that's a good question. So one of the things I talk about, first of all, I'm very transparent. I talk about the fact that I am a parent, the fact that all three of my children are vaccinated, the fact that I got them vaccinated pretty early on. Of course, as a healthcare worker, I had to be vaccinated long before most other people. So, but I tell them at the same time, I was not without total, I wasn't totally sold on it. I wasn't the first person in there volunteering, but I kind of recognized that we needed to do this. I read it, I understood the science, but I made sure that I was comfortable, and I made sure that I got the vaccine before I got my children vaccinated. I checked to see how I did. Then I let all three of them. In fact, my children were kind of, "Hey, Mom, is it time? Can we please get our vaccine?" Because they're older. So I had 2 children in college and 1 in high school when this happened. I tell people I did my own mini experiment. In fact, we all had I had Pfizer, my daughter had Pfizer, my son had Moderna, and my youngest daughter had J&J. So we had all of the vaccines. So I wasn't, partial to any one. In fact, my youngest daughter doesn't like needles. And so her reason for the J&J is because she wanted one and done. And I'm like, well, you might want to. And I said, you'll probably have to get another one, but that's okay. If you agree to take this one. And that's what she did. And then of course she got a booster, a Pfizer not long ago. But yeah, and so I just talked to them about, my own real personal, experience with it, my children's experience with it. I tried to give as much information as I can. Look, we've had millions and millions and millions of people vaccinated at this point. So we're pretty clear that there aren't any major side effects. Whatever those major side effects we thought that they were going to be, nothing has happened. There's no, we're not growing fins or tails, and we're all sane still. The whole, we've debunked the myths of the microchips and all of that stuff that was sort of pouring out of social media in the beginning, that we couldn't really fight it until enough time passed to show that obviously these things weren't true. But what a lot of people don't know is, as a pediatrician, I deal with this all the time. That's all immunizations is the bread and butter of pediatrics. So I talk about immunizations all day long, whether it's varicella, MMR, hepatitis B, A, the meningitis shot, the HPV shot. So I've been talking about vaccines for a long time. So I try to be, again, as transparent, try to give as much information, but try to be as personable as possible as well, to give my own story and why and how I decided to get my own children vaccinated, so that people realize that, because most people's first question is, did you do it? Did you get your children vaccinated? Because they want to know, if I say I trust the science this much, have I put anything on the line? And my answer is absolutely. I did it early and I do it again. And I wouldn't ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do myself first. So that was definitely very important for me, because that's how I am in my community. Anything that I ask of my community, my clients, my patients in my community, they know it's probably because I've already done it myself and I can actually speak to it.
No, I appreciate that. And I think that's what we appreciate about you, Dr. Yolanda, is that you bring that real life, real experience to this work. And so, I just remember watching you at our Benning clinic, and like the conversation you were having with parents and making them feel comfortable, because you were sharing, like, I get it. I understand where you are. And here's my experience. I think it's really been helpful. And so again, and why we are excited to have you as a partner in this work, because we need that. Sometimes it could be so medical that people just like, I still don't understand that. But you do a great job of bridging the gap around, like, the medical expertise and like the real life, real lived experience. So super appreciative of that. I got one more clip I want to show, maybe not my last one, but next to last, because we talked about having students being vaccinated within the actual school campus, right? Like, not at a rec center, not in the doctor's office, but like right here at school. Like, what was the experience like for our families and our students? So I want to share that clip with everyone now.
So what was it like having your child experience this vaccine clinic at their school, right there at DC Prep? What was that like for you?
That was amazing. It was so convenient, because I was going around looking at each place and see which ones my kids will feel comfortable with, and then they're comfortable at school. They love their school, so that made it easier for them to come. And they know people there, so they was laughing, ha ha ha. So it was easier for them. So that was an amazing thing that it was able to be at the school.
I have to agree as well. That environment was the perfect environment for my son, even though he started off a little rocky, just a little bit, but just him being in that environment, being with his mom and seeing his friends, his teachers there, he see a lot of faces that he knows. So it wasn't that he was going into the clinic where he don't know anyone, So that was the best experience and that he could ever get in his first shot.
I love that. That's like one of my favorite, I think, questions that we ask. One of my favorite responses from parents is hearing from them that, like, we appreciated being here at the campus because we understand, again, this is a nerve-wracking thing. Again, it's a hard decision for families, but to know that like it made them feel more comfortable doing it at their school where students are feeling comfortable and where there's community there was super, super great to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. And what a lot of people don't know is historically, you know, when the influenza vaccine happened, when the polio vaccine was finally developed, you know, they actually took the vaccine to people in where they were, like they were going to door, they were going to schools, they were going to churches, they were going. So this is not like unprecedented. There was some information out there. We're like, oh, they're pushing it. They're pushing the vaccine on people because they're taking it to all these places. I'm like, yeah, no, this is, if you read your history, this is actually what public health is about. When we talk about public health crises and our public health response, the way that we overcome a public health crisis is to mobilize and make things as accessible as possible. This is why, whether you have insurance or not, we're making sure that people get the vaccine. This is why, you know, what the administration has decided to do is make sure there are COVID tests available, you know, making sure that the vaccine goes to as many people, testing it on every age group, you know, having the CDC weigh in. This was, you know, one of the biggest public health crises of our lifetimes, right? People, we think about so many crises and pandemics that happened, but it was over 100 years ago since we've seen anything of this magnitude. And so this is definitely, it seems odd because none of us were, many of us, most of us were not alive 100 years ago. And even those that were infants. So they're not going to remember exactly what took place. But this is why history is so important. This is why documenting everything that we do is so important. This is why having these protocols in place are so important. Having agencies with these protocols are so important, because this is not the last pandemic. Right. So when something else comes up and rears its head, we have to be able to have the same concerted response to understand the science behind it, the science behind the mobilization, trying to get the vaccine. You know, we created vaccines so much faster than we have in the past, not because it was new technology, but because we had added supplemental technology. So I say, you know, I liken it to the telephone. When most of us know when the first telephone, you know, carried, if you knew any, my uncle actually used to work in the corporate office when I was really young and had this huge suitcase of a phone, and that was his mobile phone, and that thing was huge. And now to know that we carry these little, and this is a big one because, but you know, as thin as this phone is, in comparison to what that technology was. But not only that, when iPhones first started, the first one, the second one, the third one, it took forever for them to come out with the next one, right? People would stand in lines. Now we got 13 and 14 out, and I promise you, I still got a 10, and that was pretty new at the time that I got it. Yep. So the technology is so much faster, but no one questions how fast Apple can come up with you know, their iPhones. No one questions how fast, you know, these computers can come out once the technology, but that's really not much different than how we were able to streamline the process with vaccines this time around. We've been working with vaccines for over 100 years. If we still had the exact same process that we had 100 years ago, that wouldn't be much progress. And I would be questioning what science has been doing for 100 years. So the fact that the process was able to be streamlined and faster was for two reasons. One, the technology we've improved upon. Two, we had the entire world working on it at the same time. Because the pandemic, when we were dealing with the genetic code, which we had to crack the genetic code in order to get the vaccine, you had China, Russia, Czechoslovakia, America, you know, Japan, everybody was working on this genetic code, and we were all sharing that information because it was in the best interest of the entire world that we crack the code as soon as possible. And once we cracked the code, and we all did crack the code together, It's one of the first times that in a pandemic, we have globally worked together on something, because 100 years ago, we didn't have the technology to share real-time information the way we can now. Once we were able to crack that code so soon, that's when we started working on the different vaccines. And, again, this is the last day of Black History Month. And so many of us, have really have to like kind of sit still for a minute and recognize how we made history, because we had a Black woman, Dr. Kinsey Corbett, who was a part of this huge public health victory. Yeah. And so, it is amazing to me that so many other things sort of overshadowed that, but it's important to me as a Black woman in medicine, who's only 2% of the population in medicine. So we are our own unicorns running around here. It's amazing to me that that she was someone who was, critically involved in the process of creating the vaccine that really saved millions of lives. So.
No, appreciate you bringing up that historic fact, right? Not just a Black History Month fact, but a historic fact that it was a Black woman who was a part in leading the effort around this. This is all that. Yes, I appreciate that, because you're right. It did get overshadowed. I felt like there was like glimpses of it, and then we kind of moved on really quickly. And it's like, that's not something we need to move on from. Like, we need to make sure we acknowledge that.
We want our kids to be really proud of that, and Black History is today, and then Women's History is tomorrow. So that fact really straddles both months. Right. That she was so involved and was, such a critical part of this victory that we have. Yes. I consider at least a victory.
Yes. So what are parents going to do in this roller coaster ride we're on? You mentioned earlier, like, it's just, we're surging, we're not surging, like the mandates are loosening, then they get tighter. Like, what is your advice to families and the community overall as it relates to just like stand on this ride and like sort of seeing it through?
So I think basically, I love what you're saying. It is a ride, so don't be weary. Just to recognize that we are probably pulling up to a new normal. It's not going to be back to what it was, which I think is actually good. I think there's some things that we're more aware of. I think that personal space will definitely change a little. I think we're a lot looser and freer with our bodily fluids before COVID. So now washing hands and hand sanitizer and having some social space, is actually going to be not frowned upon. It's going to be something that we're going to encourage. Yes, it's difficult to tell our kids to do that as much because they're just so gregarious, and that's fine. But I think that as we do this, as we approach this new normal, just be ready to sort of respond to the science as the science happens, because that's what happens so the flu vaccine, for instance, it's an annual vaccine. I'm not suggesting that is going to happen with COVID-19, but I wouldn't be surprised. Tetanus, you get a tetanus shot every 10 years, right? You get there's certain things that's a series. Hepatitis B is a 3-shot series. All of those regimens became known once we knew the science of the actual thing that we were vaccinating against. So we didn't know that hepatitis B needed all 3 of those vaccines to be fully vaccinated. And then by college, you would have to be revaccinated against hepatitis B, until we had several years with hepatitis B and sort of watched how it waxed and waned in the community to see, hey, this is the best way to handle it. You should get it 2 months, 6 months. And then about 20 years, or maybe most people, it's about 18 years later, you'll get another dose of the hepatitis B. Now we know. So I think that we just have to be ready to just pay attention to and respond to the science. We're finally saying, hey, it looks like we can take the masks off. It looks like, we've gotten through the last really big surge. And so given that we have a 70% vaccination rate, given that we have, there's so many reasons now that the masks are able to come off. We're now saying, okay, look, this is what we can do now. We may find out that after this booster that we've gotten, 5 years from now, we'll need another booster. I don't know. We may find out that like the flu vaccine, we might want a yearly booster. We're still like following the science, but I just want to encourage people to try to do the same and just be patient, because we're learning from the virus, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And the virus isn't telling us what it wants to tell us. It's not being free and voluntary with this information. We're finding and following and sort of stalking the virus to define what's going on with it. And then we're responding, and we're trying to do that in real time. So sometimes it looks messy and clumsy, but I do believe that we've gotten a pretty good handle of it so far. I think we've done some really smart things so far. And, I believe that we'll continue to follow the science and respond in ways that keeps the majority of the country safe.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Good stuff. Glad to have you here, Yolanda, and giving us this lesson on COVID-19 and how to stick it out. Because you do get weary, right? Like we've been in this, 3 school years we've been dealing with COVID-19, 2 years, but 3 school years have been impacted by COVID-19. And so it's easy to get tired and worn out and just over it. But knowing that, like, again, we still got to do what we need to do to take care of ourselves and be safe, but also understand like how we get to a place where we can actually live and like be more closer back to what we were before. Hopefully, like you said, with some different cues based on what we've learned over the last two years. I think it's super helpful to have that. Before we end, though, I want to share one last clip, because you asked our parents what advice they would give to a parent who might be nervous about having their child vaccinated. And I want to share those responses before we close out. So I'll play this last clip for us.
My last question is, what advice would you give to a parent who is nervous about getting their child vaccinated?
I will tell them that I know that they have reservation about it, but it's what's best for your children. It's going to keep them healthy. It's going to keep them safe. It's an amazing decision to do. Please do it. Please get your child vaccinated, because at the end of the day, you're protecting them and you're protecting everybody else that's around them.
I'm gonna be honest with you, because I'm always nervous. I wouldn't even know what to tell them. Because if they nervous, I'm nervous right along with them. But I'll probably would tell them to talk to, look into parents that have got their kids vaccinated, and let that be their decision, also talk to, someone that like go to the doctor and get, more research it and see how you feel about it. Look at all the ins and the outs of it, that's just how I feel, but I would say, safety is first. We want our babies to be safe, but also if you're nervous, I would say definitely, look around and talk to someone that knows a lot about it, that will ease that nervousness down,
And we are super excited to have you, Dr. Yolanda, to have these parents who are our DC Prep parents. Ms. Gleason is actually a DC Prep staff member and a DC Prep parent. So we're just super excited to have those experiences to share with our families. And so what I will, say to anyone who, watches this and still has questions, please reach out. I can get them in touch with you, Dr. Yolanda. They can talk to other parents like Ms. Gleason and Ms. Vines, who again have experiences with our clinics before, and can help them feel better, or at least help answer their questions about this. But just grateful to have your experience here at the table, Dr. Yolanda, and the experience of our parents who were just so kind enough to share their thoughts with us, and how they experienced the vaccination clinics and the vaccination in general.
Yeah, and they were super, like I said. And I think that of all that we were able to do, I think it was so great to have the authenticity of 2 parents who had to make these decisions, had to determine what they were going to do, had to follow through, and then to just selflessly sort of come forward and be willing to share their raw thoughts and feelings and opinions with us. I think that was, it's basically invaluable. Like, I don't think there's any other way to describe that, we couldn't have, we're just indebted to them for what they did, and really to help other parents. It's like any other thing, support groups and things. It's best when you hear from those who, because it seems like, I may have an agenda. It seems like the school might have an agenda. But when we can have you hear from our other parents, we know that there's no agenda there. There's nothing that that they got out of this other than to share with other parents. And I love that they both said it, safety. It was everything for them. It was safety above all else. This is about their children. It was about keeping their children safe. It was about protecting them. And ultimately, when we talk about it takes a village, it takes all of us to play our role in that village for our children to thrive and to really reach their potential. And so for me, it's keeping that environment healthy, keeping them safe. And for you all, it's teaching them, all of the life skills that they need to be the citizens, the great citizens that they're going to be, because, they're meant to change the world, right?
Yeah.
We're going to pass the baton to these young people soon. And we just want them to grow up healthy and strong, and have all of the tools that they need that, that will equip them to really change the world. And so I just appreciate that those parents were so authentic and just so candid with us to say, I was afraid. I was afraid too, but I still understood that it was safety first. So that was something I truly appreciated.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate, welcoming me back. I appreciate these parents who are on here now, who are struggling with whether they're, still going to do this, what it means, what it looks like. And again, we welcome any questions,
Yes.
any concerns, because that's what we're here for. It's very seldom you're going to get a physician, board certified physician, to answer your questions one-on-one. So we want to make sure that if you're feeling that you have some questions that you need to ask, that there's some things that you want clarification on, I want you guys to feel comfortable doing that. And I'll try to be there tomorrow at the beginning at 3:30 mark. And I'm not tomorrow, Wednesday. Sorry, I keep saying tomorrow. Wednesday, the 2nd, 3:30, and until close to 5, and try to answer any questions that I can, or just be there to be comforting, like I was last time for some of your students. So
Dr. Yolanda will hold you in her lap while you get that shot. I have seen it, so I know she will do it.
I'll be there.
Well, thank you, Dr. Yolanda. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate your time. And again, just always be willing to help us out and make sure that we are giving out the best information to our families, and our families are equipped with the information they need to make sure they are able to make decisions best for their students and safety. Thanks for everyone who joined us tonight. Thank you for those who might be watching at a later date, but just appreciate you just wanting to know more, get your questions answered. Please reach out if the question was not answered in this setting and you still have questions. Please reach out. I can connect you to Dr. Yolanda. I can connect you to our parents who are willing to talk to you as well, who participated earlier in the videos. But just thank you for all that you all are doing. If you're thinking about making the decision to get vaccinated, if you've already gotten your child vaccinated, we just thank you for just thinking about it and considering it. And again, I say it all the time, getting one child vaccinated helps us make our schools safer. And so, we would like to have all of our students in a place where we are all safe and able to, get back again closer to normal than we currently are, I should say. But just really appreciative. Thank you again. I will give our plug one more time for our Anacostia Elementary Campus Vaccine Clinic, Wednesday, March 2nd, 3:30 to 7. Dr. Yolanda will be there from 3:30 to 5 to answer questions. But please come out. You'll be in the gym. If you have not had your child vaccinated and they're between the ages of 5 and 11 years old, this vaccination clinic is specifically for 5 to 11-year-olds. So please come out. Please bring your insurance card. If you do not have insurance, please still come out. You can still get your child vaccinated. So looking forward to having you there, and reach out if you have any questions. Thank you so much, everyone, and good night.
Good night.